they're going to get left behind if they don't embrace AI and in the organisation understand what it can do for you and for your customers, is to naturally be very cautious, take a more cautious approach to new developments, new technologies, and what might be considered to be kind of black box solutions. I think it's really absolutely critical, such as underwriting and claims, to make sure that ultimately we're doing the right thing. I think what AI will do is hopefully will enable firms to detect those frauds far more quickly. We'll have access to real-time data more effectively than probably some of the fraud teams in the various insurers do today. But don't just sit there and wait to see what's happened. Get in there, learn about it, understand it, start to test it, and then look to kind of build that programmatic approach to AI.
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Alex Rumble. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer and AI Ambassador here at HTEC. And today we are going to be talking about how AI is reshaping the insurance industry, but looking at this really very much from an end-to-end perspective. So from underwriting to pricing to claims to servicing, fraud and core operations. Now, joining me today, I have Gary Duggan, Board Advisor for HTEC, previously a CEO of insurance companies, who's led transformations across underwriting and claims. And we're going to explore the realities, the risk and the ROI. And what is it that leading insurer must prioritize in 2026? So Gary, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you. Good to meet you.
We recently did a piece of research, Gary, and that was around 2,500 executives in North America, Europe, and also the Middle East. Now, 250 of those were in the insurance industry, and it showed that 85% of insurance have deployed AI somewhere. But only 41% or so have really scaled it across function. Why is it that insurance is still struggling to move from isolated wins to getting some real enterprise value?
Thanks, Alex. I think, the nature of heavily regulated industries like insurance, like banking, is to naturally be very cautious, take a more cautious approach to new developments, new technologies, and what might be considered to be kind of black box solutions. And so that nature of risk mitigation, first and foremost, before then looking at opportunities where AI, etc., can kind of help the industry, tend to come afterwards. So the approach is very much more of a test and learn, small pilots, and then build it up. I think things are changing a little bit. I think some of the boards that I sit on are starting to take a more programmatic approach to AI. I think it's in its infancy, and it's not across the industry, but certain more advanced thinking firms are starting to look at it and adopt a more AI first approach. Having said that, still looking at testing different parts of the organisation just to try whether it's in claims, to your point, in underwriting, or whether it be more at the front end distribution side of things. So I think that's part of the reason why I think they're a bit slower to adapt to AI on a more enterprise-wide level than maybe other industries who take a more kind of proactive approach to it.
So let me ask you a couple of follow-up questions. The first one is that cautiousness in regulated industry absolutely makes sense. To what extent is that hesitation creative a competitive disadvantage, potentially? And to what extent is culture part of that challenge?
I think culture is a huge part of it. I really do. I think many of the insurers as well can be quite siloed in their approach, and I'd almost split that into front-end distribution side of things, not necessarily always as well connected to the claims and some of the underwriting side of things. So I think that creates a little bit of a more segmented approach, more kind of, well, we'll try in claims, or we'll do something in underwriting, or maybe we'll do something from a front-end perspective. So I think that creates an environment where people are doing more test and learn within their specific areas, rather than from an enterprise-wide kind of perspective. So I think that's part of the reason why it's been approached in that way. And also, we shouldn't forget that the regulators are on a bit of a journey as well.
Of course.
The FCA and the Financial Ombudsman I think, can see the opportunities that AI can deliver into the industry, but they're also naturally quite cautious as well, and wanting to look to see that the insurers have got robust governance in place, really good strong disciplines to make sure that there aren't unintended consequences associated with AI for the customer in particular and for the firm more broadly.
So let me just follow up with something that you've just triggered in my mind, which is I'm currently looking at what does it mean human in the loop? And clearly that's a big topic, and that's evolving in itself. But you've talked about AI and ensuring that we do what's right by the customer. What does that human in the loop, and how important is that within the insurance industry?
I think it's really absolutely critical, particularly in certain areas anyway, such as underwriting and claims, to make sure that ultimately we're doing the right thing. Consumer duty in the UK is a huge thing, and there's nervousness around, robotic-based decisions. Will they ultimately deliver good outcomes for customers? And how do we make sure that we've got the right level of oversight from a human perspective to look at, say, individual cases and decisions that are being taken through AI ultimately will result in delivering good outcomes for customers. So I think that's where the human in the loop is really, really important, I think, particularly from a customer's perspective.
So you've also talked about segmentation of the different functions within an insurance company. Possibly we could call them silos as well, yes. Because the data silos goes with it.
Yeah.
But in the survey, we found that actually the number one barrier was still integration between the functions. What is it that is especially difficult in insurance? Is it because the processes are so fundamentally different, or because they use such fundamentally different data in each of those areas? Or what other point of view do you have on that difficulty in integration?
As I say, some of it is kind of cultural. Some of it is, and we maybe talk about ROI and the differences in the timelines around ROI for, say, front end what I would call agentic AI versus claims, which have such a long tail before you really know whether the decisions you've been taking from an underwriting perspective ultimately deliver the best outcome for the firm at the end of the day, because claims tails can go on for 2, 3, 4 years, whereas front end decisions around agentic AI, you can see the benefits from an efficiency perspective really quickly, because obviously call lengths might be lower, conversion rates should be higher. The development of personalization using AI should result in better conversion rates. You'll see that almost immediately. So from the distribution of front end, what we call front end perspective, customer facing, you can see the benefits of ROI far more quickly. So they're operating on very different kind of timelines and very different approaches to, say, the claims teams and the underwriting teams. So we've made a decision today. We'll only know in 2, 3, 4 years' time whether that was the right decision from a pricing perspective, etc., from a risk segmentation perspective. So that naturally creates almost a different kind of cultural way of looking at things, and that is partly why some of the segmentation maybe in the different parts of an insurer, if it's an end-to-end insurer, mean that you don't then get an enterprise-wide approach to things.
Absolutely.
Because people are working on very different timelines.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Thanks for clarifying
That's
that.
Okay.
It also makes me think about where would do insurance get the talent, therefore, to really lead that transformation? Because, from what you're describing, they're also running like individual businesses with their own metrics and ROIs and data and things like that. So, is it a question of creating an organization that works across all of those areas, or to what extent is partnership with an external organization like an HTEC, for example, helping to accelerate that, or to at least shine the lens on those specific areas of ROI that you've talked about? Yeah,
I think my starting point would be to start with partner with somebody. The various boards that I'm on are starting to look at how they can kind of improve their knowledge and understanding of AI and the benefits and the opportunities that it could bring to the insurance sector, to its customers and to the firm, by partnering with various firms, doing the research and analysis and partnering with various firms. In terms of them building, industrial capability within the insurance sector around AI, I think that's going to be a hybrid approach. Certainly, some of the organisations I'm involved in, we're looking to build an approach where we partner with somebody to start with and start to build that in-house capability. And the areas where it probably feels like it's probably going to be easier to build that in-house capability around AI, I would say in the pricing teams, for example.
Right.
Pricing teams in UK personal lines have been working with machine learning models for 10, 15 years. So AI to me is a natural evolution from machine learning into AI. So those teams, particularly in the more kind of developed insurance firms and in the UK, it would be probably more on the personal line side, have already started on that journey and starting to build their capability beyond machine learning into AI. So that combination of existing kind of internal talent in this area, combined with partnering with a firm like HTEC, I think could help to accelerate those firms' kind of capabilities within the AI space.
So they're effectively building their skills in parallel to the partner coming on board.
Yeah,
so that certainly makes a lot of sense. In our predictions that we did for 2026, a fellow board advisor, George Brady, who ventured in predicting that multi-agent system will automate what we call previously untouchable workflows. Where do you see AI landing first when it comes to insurance? And also, as we talked about earlier, where do you see the accountability really remaining very much with the human?
I agree with George. I think the multi-agent systems is the future. I think it'll take a bit of time for insurance to kind of get comfortable with multi-agent systems. And again, I think it's at the front end where I think the biggest benefits are going to be, and that can be either from kind of utilizing AI to replace some of the contact center type capabilities, traditional contact center capabilities, in addition to on the underwriting side of things. And I think I've said, we talked before about the opportunity for AI to take over some of the more manual, some of the more transactional, either conversations with customers, informing customers, or whether it's from an underwriting, building capability from an underwriting perspective, building the data, bringing together all of the various forms of data together. And there's a huge amount of data now available to use to make even better underwriting decisions. And then that will allow the agents, the underwriting guys, to kind of focus very much on the value add piece. Yes. So it's more of an oversight, checking to make sure that some of those decisions are the right decisions, and just validating some of the recommendations that have been made by the AI tool, if you like. There was an interesting article today that Aviva have just introduced AI in some of their protection application processes. Right. So for life insurance, for example, where historically there's a huge amount of medical questions that would have to be asked to the customer that would then be validated by the underwriter, who would then come back with a price. They're now starting to use an AI tool to automate all of that medical questionnaire stuff and deliver a price to the customer. Yeah. So there's huge benefits across the life industry, personal lines, and particularly commercial lines, especially where there's some more complex underwriting processes. So the more complex risks require a significant amount of investigation, data gathering, to ultimately make a decision about what the price might be for the customer. Yeah. And that's where I think AI can provide a fantastic kind of valuable tool to speed up the process for the customer, deliver some kind of a competitive edge potentially for that insurer by being able to get back to the customer with a decision far more quickly than some of the more traditional insurers. Absolutely, because when you deal with an insurer, there's definitely pain, an emotional pain that's involved. So the faster 100%. You resolve that, the more likely you are to stay with that insurer effectively. You've touched on a point mentioning Aviva. I mean, there's been a lot in the last, 8-9 months of consolidation in the market. And Aviva is one of them, as well as I think Munich Re have recently, talked about making an acquisition, or have now completed that. Yeah. How can AI help those organizations to
really not jeopardize the customer experience? What could potentially be some good wins in that M&A arena?
One of the challenges for a number of the insurers and the brokers who've consolidated or gone through a process of a series of acquisitions, and I used to work for one many years ago, is you have multiple data sets, multiple different customer journeys, different pricing capabilities, and that creates, first of all, a lot of friction in the customer journeys. It increases cost, and then they often go through a process of trying to consolidate, integrate onto single platforms. It's one of the barriers to success for a lot of the insurers, is when they do go through this acquisition process of how do you bring all that together, big programs of consolidation, integration, and that can take quite a long time. I do think there is an opportunity to find a way of streamlining that whole process, utilizing AI. I think it can do that kind of far more quickly, far more efficiently than maybe they have done in the past. What you've seen, and another reason why it's taken many insurers so long to kind of on the AI journey, is because they have a huge number of legacy platforms. Some have multiple legacy platforms, and so to try and find a way of integrating all that, and then kind of delivering the fantastic kind of front end journeys that you want to deliver for customers, is really, really difficult across multiple brands. Some of the more advanced thinking insurers recently in the UK have moved to modularized platforms.
Right.
So there are a couple of insurers, I won't name them, but a couple of insurers that have moved to a modularized platform approach. And what that will do, I think, will give them a far better opportunity to integrate AI tools into their modularized platforms than the insurers who've got these big 20, 30-year-old legacy platforms.
Yes.
Some have 2, 3, 4. And how do you build AI into these big old legacy platforms?
And what role do you think AI plays in achieving that modular architecture effectively?
I think there's multiple different roles that it can play, particularly I think through the front end approach, through the agentic AI. I think that will give them a great opportunity to kind of bring benefits through the contact center.
So you've preempted my question around legacy modernization and how long it was going to take an organization to do so. I think we're clear on the fact that it takes a very long time. So we've talked about ROI and how the fact that different functions within an insurers have got different ROIs, and that does create some stumbling blocks. Yeah. Now let's talk a little bit about fraud and where effectively that goes straight to the bottom line. What can you foresee, or what can you imagine AI really adding in terms of value when it comes to fraud detection? Yeah,
I think that fraud relies, the ability to detect fraud relies on a firm's ability to kind of assimilate various different data forms to detect where frauds might take place. And quite often the fraudsters are almost ahead of the game. They're always testing new ideas. We know with cyber, for example, this is a huge area of kind of for a lot of fraudsters, of where they see opportunities to leverage kind of cyber attacks or utilize cyber attacks to their gain. And I think firms really, really have to be on their toes. I think what AI will do is hopefully will enable firms to detect those frauds far more quickly. We'll have access to real-time data more effectively than probably sort of the fraud teams in the various insurers do today. So I think that's where AI will really bring an advantage compared to where they've been in the past.
And behavioural pattern analysis obviously plays a huge part in that. How do insurers communicate AI decision transparently in terms of how, as consumers, we're engaging with AI, but also how they are using that in relation to the consumers?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and I don't think that's been fully thought through yet around how we. And this is part of, as I said earlier on, the regulators are playing catch up.
Yeah.
So there will be a little bit of the insurers kind of waiting for the regulator to tell the insurers when they should and shouldn't tell the customer that was an AI-based decision. And do you have to do that if there's a human in the loop at the end of it that's validating a recommendation from AI as opposed to the decision, if that makes sense?
Yeah.
So I think we're on a bit of a journey. I think it wouldn't surprise me in the next year or two if you don't start to get some form of AI regulation in the insurance industry above and beyond what we have today. I mean, there's an umbrella set of regulation in the UK at the moment around consumer duty and ultimately delivering good outcomes for customers.
Yes.
How do you evidence that? And I think part of evidencing that what you've done is delivering good outcomes for customers will evolve to including how you've validated that any recommendation or decision made by AI has delivered a good outcome for the customer. You know, what does the data tell you to prove that that was the good thing ultimately for the customer?
Right, absolutely. No, that makes complete sense. We're talking about validation and human in the loop. One of the things that came out of the report was actually literacy and how literacy in insurance can be incredibly low. How do we reconcile that low literacy with the need to have the human in the loop validating the decision? There's a little bit of a challenge there, it feels like.
Yeah, that absolutely is a challenge. And I think what we probably start to see over the next year or two is a huge amount of AI training courses being developed by lots of L&D firms and external firms to provide that understanding of literacy for boards and for leadership, let alone kind of other people within the organisation. So I think there's a huge demand now for AI training courses and etc. to teach the boards and the leadership what AI is, what the opportunities are, what the risks are associated with AI in the insurance sector. So I think that's a TBC. I think TV developed. Everyone, as you said earlier on, in the insurance sector, were a bit slower than others. I think that one of the things that we need to do more of around the literacy and some of the things you asked earlier on around accelerating the utilisation and understanding of AI in the insurance sector is to look at other industries. We're not very good, frankly, at looking at other industries. And if you look at the boards and the leadership of most insurance companies in the UK, the people that are on those boards have come from other insurance companies. Yes. Very rarely, if ever, have they come from other industries. When I was at Tesco, actually, they were pretty good at bringing in people from other industries into a retail environment to provide fresh, new thinking, particularly where industries are far more advanced in certain areas into the retail sector.
And I think AI is really kind of blurring those industry-specific capabilities lines because AI works in the same way across all of those industries. So there's never been a better time, for those executives to look at those other industries and see what's been done, and throughout those education programs, really rethink how they're running their business and the operating models within those businesses. Yes. Now, thank you very much, Gary. One last question: if an insurance leader is watching this and wants to make a meaningful step in the next 90 days, what would that be?
I would say research AI, the utilisation of AI in other sectors, identify where you can, where other insurers are using AI, and see what you can do to kind of replicate that. It's all about education, knowledge, research, partner with somebody who knows this stuff far better than you do, not just in the UK, but more globally, a firm like HTEC, so that you can build up your knowledge and understanding. And then beyond that, and it'll be part of the 90 days maybe, once you've got that understanding, is identify a specific problem that you're trying to solve for, that you think AI can help you out with, and test it and go in. And I know that's not going to ultimately overnight deliver your enterprise-wide AI solutions, but I think that's probably a bit ambitious for a lot of firms at this stage. But don't just sit there and wait to see what's happened. Get in there, learn about it, understand it, start to test it, and then look to kind of build that programmatic approach to AI in your insurance company. Because if you don't, frankly, you're going to get left behind in the same way as some firms were left behind with digital many years ago. They're going to get left behind if they don't embrace AI and in the organisation understand what it can do for you and for your customers.
Yeah, and one of the questions that we asked in the survey is, how long, if you don't have the right minimum level of maturity at the moment, how many years is that going to set you back competitively, and the average response was 2 years. And if you think the speed at which AI is moving, and there's all sorts of adoption taking place in different industries, 2 years is a very long time to try and play catch up.
Yes.
So thank you very much for your time, Gary. It's been a pleasure again. And thank you for watching. Thank you for your attention. And get in touch if you want to carry on the conversation.